that a majority of employers fail to report workplace injuries due to OSHA's limited procedures and penalties that are still too low to be a deterrent.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Workers' Memorial Day was yesterday, April 28th. That is the day that the labor movement observes Workers' Memorial Day. It's when we remember workers that are killed, injured, or made ill on the job. And it's a day to renew our commitment to fight for strong safety and health protections. It is set on the anniversary of the initiation of the Occupational Safety and Health Act, which was more than 50 years ago. More than 50 years ago on April 28th, OSHA went into effect. And, you know, it's important to remember that that law was won because of tireless efforts of the labor movement, organizing for safer working conditions and stuff like that. After more than 50 years of OSHA, over 668,000 workers can say that their lives have been saved by its passage. And that's according to the AFL-CIO, right, Adam?
Right.
But the work is not done. Each year, thousands of workers are still killed. Millions are injured. 100,000 workers every year die because of occupational illnesses. So it's, you know, there's still definitely a lot to do. The AFL-CIO puts out an annual death on the job report that we're going to be digging into here in a little bit. But one of the things that they mentioned here in this is that the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, as well as the Mine Safety and Health Administration, really, they just lack the resources that they need to protect workers. Many employers and workers never even see OSHA in their workplaces. And the GAO, the Government Accountability Office, reports they show that a majority of employers fail to report workplace injuries due to OSHA's limited procedures and penalties that are still too low to be a deterrent. So corporations exploit those weaknesses and create environments where workers are not adequately protected when they speak out against unsafe working conditions. Black, Latino, and immigrant workers are disproportionately killed on the job, and workers still cannot freely join a union without retaliation from their employers.
Absolutely.
But, you know, there's some hope. There is some hope, right, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, through the labor movement, that's how working people have won safety and health protections, you know, from the shop floor all the way to the halls of Congress. You name it, any safety feature in your workplace probably came from the struggle of workers before you. You know, I was speaking to some high school students yesterday on Workers' Memorial Day about this very subject and talked to them about, hey, do you like fire exits? Are fire alarms pretty handy in your life? I would say yes. And the reason we have that is thanks to the fights of the labor movement. And, you know, whether that's historically or today, unions are still today fighting for safe jobs for everyone, regardless of their race or gender or employment or background. Winning strong standards from governments and employers raises the standard of practice for all of us. And educating working people on their rights keeps our most vulnerable from being silenced. The labor movement is a community that comes together to ensure everyone goes home at the end of a work shift alive and without the chronic illnesses caused by work exposures that continue to plague many workers. And, you know, I know we're going to get into this a little bit more on the report, the Death on the Job report, but I mean, over 300 Americans die on the job every day. Now, I mean, and that's not ancient history. And that's in the United States of America. And, you know, we just had an anniversary of that massive garment worker disaster in Bangladesh 10 years ago. It was just an anniversary there. And so it's just a reminder of how dangerous it is for so many of us to go to work. We risk our lives and our limbs and our health and safety. And our government has not taken adequate steps to protect us from exploitative corporations and employers. Because at the end of the day, their goal is to make as much profit as possible. And sometimes our own health and safety gets in the way of that pursuit of profit. And it's up to us to organize to be strong enough to ensure that we can have safe workplaces and we can ensure the government upholds its promise that it was made, this promise was made to us with OSHA, that we would have safe workplaces. So, together on Workers' Memorial Day is a good time to raise our voices and to speak out for stronger safety and health protections in our workplaces and have stronger job safety and health laws. We have to hold employers accountable to keep workers safe. We demand action on critical safety and health protections against preventable workplace hazards such as heat illness, workplace violence, infectious diseases, silica in mining, and toxic chemical exposures. We demand more resources from Congress for our nation's job safety agencies to hold employers accountable. And above all, we demand dignity at work. We will organize and fight for the fundamental right of every worker to a safe job until that promise is fulfilled. Let us remember the dead and fight for the living.
And so let's talk about some of these numbers that the AFL put out, because they are really, really staggering. And these are coming from the annual Death on the Job report from the AFL-CIO, the America's largest labor federation. It's the 32nd one of these reports that they put out annually. And one of the key findings here this year is that Black workers and Latino workers are dying on the job more than they have in 10 years. Wow. The highest death rate. I mean, workplaces in America are becoming less safe. In a time where workers where employers, where bosses are bragging about record profits. Here's from the AFL's press release. The report shows the fatality rate for Black workers grew from 3.5 to 4 workers per 100,000, and more than 650 died on the job. That's just Black workers in just 1 year, the highest number in nearly 2 decades. Latino workers have the greatest risk of dying on the job, with a fatality rate of 4.5 per 100,000 that has grown 13% over the past decade. There was also a slight uptick in deaths for Latino workers in 2021, and the overwhelming majority who died were immigrants. And Liz Schuler mentions that, the report, it's not just about data points, because behind each one of these deaths, each one of these thousands, tens of thousands of deaths, is a person. Every worker who died, says Liz Schuler, every worker who died on the job represents another empty seat at a family's kitchen table. Every worker accounted for in this report is a person who just went to work one day and never came home. And that's really important to recognize. And there has been studies showing this, that when you talk about, once these numbers get so abstract, they become less meaningful to people. And so it's important to not let yourself kind of fall into that trap of thinking about these as statistics as opposed to stories and people. But some of these top line numbers in 2021, 343 workers every day died from hazardous working conditions. About 5,200 workers over the year were killed on the job in the United States. An estimated 120,000 died from occupational diseases. In 1 year, 120,000. The job fatality rate increased to 3.6 per 100,000 workers. Employers reported. And remember, I just told you that the majority of employers do not report work-related injuries and illnesses. And we're going to get to some Alabama-specific data here in a bit. Employers reported 3.2 million work-related injuries and illnesses. The true impact of COVID-19 infections due to workplace exposures is unknown. Limited data show that more than 1.5 million nursing home workers have been infected with COVID-19 and more than 3,000 have died. That's just the nursing home workers, right? Fewer data are now reported on job injuries and illnesses related to workplace violence, musculoskeletal disorders, and heat illnesses, which continue to be major problems, and underreporting is widespread. The true toll of work-related injuries and illnesses is 5.4 million to 8.1 million each year just in the private industry. Not even in the public sector, which accounts for how much of, how many workers are public sector workers? Like 1 in 10? 1 in 5? It's a lot. It's a lot of workers, hundreds of thousands, over 1 million. The report also lays out recommendations for strengthening federal agencies tasked with enforcing worker safety. In 2021, there are 1,800 inspectors, 1,871. 900 at the federal level and 971 at the state level. But in Alabama, there are zero inspectors in the state of Alabama tasked with enforcing worker safety. Zero. 900 inspectors at the federal level, 971 at the state level for more than 10.8 million workplaces under the Occupational Safety and Health Act's jurisdiction. That equates to the Federal Occupational and Safety and Health Administration having the ability to inspect every workplace, get this, once every 190 years.
Wow.
Once every 2 centuries is the capacity with which our government has to inspect workplaces. Once every 2 centuries. Just $3.99 in OSHA's budget to protect each worker. Less than $4 per worker is how much is allocated to protect our safety and our health. Penalties for employer violations remain too low to be a deterrent, and fewer than 130 worker deaths have been criminally prosecuted. Get this, not just in the last year. I told you that there were 5,000 workers died last year from a work-related accident. 120,000 last year died due to workplace-related illnesses. So having those numbers in your head, I'll give you 2 or 3 seconds. Guess how many how many worker deaths have been criminally prosecuted since 1970? With those numbers in your head, 5,000 workers died on the job last year. 120,000 died from workplace-related illnesses. 130 worker deaths have been criminally prosecuted since 1970. 130 over 50 years. That is less than 2 per year. 2 criminal prosecutions every year. When we have tens of thousands of workers dying because of their boss's neglect. AFL Safety and Health Director Rebecca Reindl says that the federal agencies responsible for safeguarding workers were created for a reason, and it's past time that they receive the funding and staffing they need to create and enforce worker protection standards. Employers should be held accountable for the working conditions on job sites, and our lawmakers at every level must use their power to properly enforce the policies designed to protect us. Some more numbers nationwide. The industries with the highest fatality rates in 2021 were, first, the most deadly occupation in the country was agriculture, forestry, fishing, and hunting, with a fatality rate of 19.5 per 100,000 workers. That is more than 4 times the national average. Transportation and warehousing, 14.5 per 100,000, more than 3 times the national average. Mining, quarrying, and oil and gas extraction, 14.2 per 100,000. Construction, 9.4 per 100,000. And wholesale trade, 5.1 per 100,000. It's worth noting that law enforcement is not in the top 5 most dangerous professions.
You know, I did notice that.
Yeah. Just worth a note.
Do we need a thin green line?
I mean, honestly,
to honor the folks in agriculture, forestry, and fishing and hunting. I mean, it's a much more deadly occupation.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Miners, transportation workers, drivers, they don't get any kind of special hubbub whenever they die. So let's talk about Alabama. I already said in Alabama we have 0 people. None. Nobody in the state of Alabama who cares, ostensibly, about law and order. Nobody tasked with enforcing workplace safety and health standards. Nobody. There are 27 federal inspectors assigned to Alabama, which gives those federal inspectors the ability to inspect every workplace in Alabama once every 150 years, once every century and a half. In Alabama last year, 111 workers died because of workplace injuries. 32,600 workers died of workplace related illnesses. We are among the top 10 most deadly states for workers. The number 1 state being the safest, the number 50 state being the least safe. We are number 43. We had the 7th highest death rate for workers in the state of Alabama. However, and this may be related to some of the numbers that I mentioned earlier, like how we have 0 people tasked with enforcing safety and health standards in this state. We have a higher than average fatality rate. I just told you, it's among the top 10 most deadly states in the country to be if you're a worker. If you're a working person, Alabama is one of the top 10 most deadly states. However, our illness and injury reporting, the number of illnesses and injuries reported by employers in the state of Alabama is lower than the national average.
The math isn't really adding up there.
Yeah, the math is not mathin' there. The math is not mathin' there. Really, really gross stuff.
I guess, should we be surprised to see Alabama rank in the bottom 10 yet again when it comes to our quality of life?
Yeah.
We have seen throughout the history of the state of Alabama that our state government does not care about working class people. It has made it a priority to support employers and at the expense of employees. That's why we have 0 federal inspectors. We have legislators who are now poring over pre-K textbooks to see if anything is too quote-unquote woke.
Right.
Yet we have 0 people who work for state government in this state who are supposed to look at safety and health of working people, which is the vast majority of Alabamians, right? The vast majority of Alabamians are working class. We don't own anything. Maybe we own a car, perhaps, at most, but most of us don't own anything. We don't live off profits. We don't live off rents. We don't live off dividends. We don't live off interest. We live off our wages. And yet our state government cares so little that this is the result.
Yeah. Yeah, 0 work inspectors, but we have a lot of woke inspectors. Right?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, so really great use of resources of state funds. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.